Welcome to the Books Between Friends podcast.
3 lifelong friends,
one shared obsession.
Books.
From epic fantasy to page-turning thrillers.
We dive into the stories we love
And the ones we just can't stop talking about.
So take a seat,
Grab a drink,
and get cozy. Hey, book friends, welcome back. I am so happy to be back, you guys. I know it feels like forever, but it's only been a few weeks. For me, I can officially say that I am a doctor now.
That's so exciting.
That's so crazy.
So friggin' excited. And I can also say that last night I submitted my final done version. No more edits, no more writing, no more worrying and staying up late all night to submit. It has been all submitted and I am done.
Yay!
Yay!
Finally.
Snaps for Jen.
I'm so happy. But I was so focused on wanting to be done last night that I almost burned my house down, you guys.
Oh no.
Okay. So
Tell us more.
okay. So I have a regular nightly routine where I go boil like 2 or 3 eggs for the next morning because that's what I have for breakfast. And so last night it was late. I was super determined to finish my like final revisions and get everything submitted to the university. So it was like around 8:30. I got up to use the restroom like, okay, I need to put my eggs in so they can be done by the time I'm done writing. So I put the eggs in, I go put it on the stove, and then I come back, put my headphones back on, and I'm just like deep in editing mode. So I'm just like editing, and then an hour later, I hear like some popping noises. And I was like, what's popping? And I was like, Baxter, is somebody here? And, you know, he wasn't barking, right? So I got up and there were sparks coming out of my stove. And I was like, oh my God, I forgot I left the eggs on the stove for an hour. The pan was completely dry. There was no more water there.
Oh my
like
God.
the whole thing was black. There was like actual flames like coming out of the pan.
That's
I was
so
like,
crazy.
oh my God, like turn that off.
I didn't even ask you when you told me about it. Like, did the eggs break?
Oh no, they're actually completely intact. It was pretty funny.
Are
That's
they,
so
like,
funny.
hard as rock?
Oh, I haven't tried.
Yeah.
I literally like took it off.
You
the
just threw 'em
stove,
out?
and I threw
Yeah.
everything out.
They've become bricks.
Yeah, forget those.
I was so determined, you guys, and so focused to finish that I completely forgot. And then with my headphones on, I couldn't hear like the boiling water.
Oh my
like,
God.
I couldn't hear I couldn't hear anything. So
Yeah.
thankfully, something got me to focus on whatever popping noises, and me and Baxter are okay.
Yay.
And I finished.
Well, I'm glad
Yay.
you got it submitted and you didn't burn the house down.
Yes,
My
Dr.
so funny.
Ramirez.
story.
Yeah.
Did you guys spend your break?
Oh gosh. Well, I had a birthday. So
That's right.
Yay.
Yay! Yes, and so I was able to actually go on my birthday to go see you defend for your doctorate, and that was so exciting. Oh my gosh, I could not. I was like leaning. I would put my ear to the door as you were having like your own private moment with whoever was on your committee, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just waiting to hear the key phrase like congratulations, Dr. Ramirez. And
Right.
as
Yeah.
soon as I heard it, I was like, oh my God, I'm tearing up. Like
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
the hell? I was like, I cannot. I was so proud. So congratulations.
Thank
like
you.
heartfelt congratulations.
Thank you.
So very proud of you.
Thank you.
And it was a fun night. It was a good night. And then I tailed it right back over to Dallas.
I know, it's such a long
And then
drive.
But it was fine. I got to listen to a book on the way back. So,
True.
Perfect.
but yeah, no, it was a nice little break. And then we come back today and we have STAR testing for the kids. So we have this lovely thing. If you're listening outside of Texas, we have this our standardized test is called the STAR. And I guess that's just because Texas thinks it's hot shit or something. I don't know. Because I know I have students listening. So if you're listening, guys, I hate STAR just as much as you do. And so if it were up to me, we would not have it. I'm sorry. But
Yeah. That's how I
But yeah,
felt
so
too.
we had that today, and that's the day that brought us back to us recording, and so I'm excited to be back.
Yay.
Yay.
Yay!
Well, I'm so glad you got to go join Jen, because I was out of the country in Mexico for a few weeks, as you guys all know. And we were just kind of like bopping around different parts of Mexico and just having a blast. It was awesome. In the end, we got to spend some time with my husband's family, who lives in Guanajuato. And then we also took some shorter trips to San Miguel de Allende, which is just a little bit north of there. We also spent some time in Tulum, which was super relaxing. And then we ended the trip with almost a week, I think, in Mexico City. And that was a blast. I mean, we didn't even get to finish everything on our list, on our bucket list of things that we wanted to like see and do and like food that we wanted to try. But we did a lot and we saw a lot and we ate a lot of great food. So we had some good times. It was awesome.
Lots of great tacos.
Unfortunately, it ended with me having food poisoning and being so ready to get home by the end of things. But all in all, it was a great trip and a great experience.
Honestly,
and it's funny. So like, the day that you had your defense, Jen, Ethan texted me like the little invitation and I was like, and I forgot you guys were ahead of us, like an hour ahead of us. So like we made it back to our hotel at 2:00 Mexico time. And I asked Ethan, I was like, is there like a link or something I can hop on? And he was like, oh, she just finished. And I was like, oh right,
no.
You guys are an hour ahead.
Honestly, dude, I wanted to text you, but I had like put my phone and everything away like hours before because I was so nervous.
Yeah, I didn't want to bug you about it because I knew you had your head in like defending your dissertation.
Yeah.
But Ethan was like keeping me posted. He was like, she's done, but they're like deliberating now. And I was like, okay, well, let me know, what they decide and stuff. And so he like texted me as soon as he heard, you were officially Dr. Ramirez. And I also shed a tear. I was like, oh my God, it's real.
I can't believe it, you
so
guys.
Yeah.
And honestly, like people kept asking me before, they're like, are you gonna cry? I was like, I don't know. Like I'm just gonna be happy, like that I'm gonna be done. As soon as I opened the doors, I like lost it. I started crying. Yeah. Right? I was just like sobbing and smiling at the same time.
Yeah, just
what
happy,
you didn't
relieved.
see.
I can't imagine.
I know. Yeah. What you didn't see was about like 30 seconds before we heard like the key phrase against the door, because all of us were listening. 30 seconons before that is like pretty much everyone in the room was like crying with you, like
oh my God.
And then like everyone was like, oh, we gotta she's coming out.
Get it together.
But
That's
we were
awesome.
all so happy for you. It's such a great moment.
It was great. Yeah, it was really great. And they played Selena as soon as I came out, dude. It was amazing.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah. It was a great time. It was a great time. Oh, I can't wait to see those videos. They haven't even sent those to me yet. So
gotta get on it.
this. I know. I gotta talk to my brother. All right, guys, now that we're back from the break, we are officially diving into our very first romance fantasy, or as everyone likes to call it, romantasy book of season 2 of the podcast. And this is your lore master talking for the series. So I'm really excited to deep dive into this one. We will be reading On Wings of Blood by Briar Boelyn. This is book 1 of the Blood Wing Academy series. If you're a fan of dark academia, enemies to lovers, romance, fantasy, vampires, and dragons, then you are in the right place. But before we get started, I'm going to pass it over to Steph for a quick PSA.
That's right, you guys. Before we get started, spoiler warning, if you are listening to this episode, we're assuming that you've read the first 15 chapters because there are going to be spoilers throughout. So, if you hadn't had a chance to read yet, please be sure to go back and finish the first 15 chapters. Then come and listen to the discussion. All right, and then real quick, if you've been loving our book chats, we really appreciate if you would leave us a quick review on Apple Podcasts. It would really help us out and help other book lovers find our little podcast and join our little growing community. Plus, we would love to give you a shout out on our next episode. Speaking of which, thank you so much, Bookish Awesome. She gave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and she said, "Love this podcast, funny and informative. The Nightingale was one of my faves."
Yay.
Ours
That's so
too.
awesome.
I know.
Yeah. I absolutely loved that one. That I think that one was like one that's like most out of all of our comfort zones.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
surprisingly, we all, I think, gave it a 5 stars and just absolutely loved it.
Yes.
Yep.
All right, you guys. So, quick reminder before we actually dive in, what we like to do is our 3-2-1 structure, where we each share 3 things that stuck out to us, 2 character moments, and 1 theory and/or prediction. But because this is our first episode of the series, we would like to share our first impressions of the book. And then we're going to give you a little bit of a lore bite where we talk about the world and the political system that we're kind of going into. So, before I share my first impressions of the book, I do want to share that I've already read this book. I actually just currently got book 3, The Wings That Bind, but I haven't started it yet. I wanted to start it and try to read it before this, but I was like, I don't want this to kind of like ruin my conversation with you guys. So I was like, I'm not going to read book 3 yet. But I did read book 2, The Bond That Burns. And so far, I definitely recommend the series. Typically, we try to pick a book on the podcast that all 3 of us haven't read, but it doesn't always work out that way. But I promise not to share any spoilers, okay? And if I feel like my facial expressions are going to give something away, I'll just cover it up. I promise. When I first picked up this book, though, I'll admit that I picked it up because of Book Talk influencers. It just kept coming up on my For You page, and anyone who read it kept saying that this was like a perfect for Fourth Wing fans. So, of course, I had to read it, I had to check it out. And let me tell you, it does not disappoint. And sorry, I know I'm like blabbering over here, but if you didn't know, there is a prequel series called Blood of a Fae, and it follows Morgan, who is actually Medra's aunt, who's the FMC of the story. You don't need to read the prequel to understand On Wings of Blood, but it does give you a little bit of Medra's backstory, and I think that the first 2 chapters you kind of guys picked up on some of that, and it kind of tells you where she came from. So I read the prequel series. I enjoyed it. I love how it all ties together. But anyways, I don't think it's better than Fourth Wing, but it was still a great read, and I can't wait to see what you guys think of the book.
So for me, this book has also been on my radar for a little while. It's been sitting in my Kindle for like a year now at this point. So when Jen brought it up as, potentially a podcast book, I immediately was like, yes, I've been wanting to read that anyway. I've also heard, people comparing it to Fourth Wing and also to Harry Potter, which is my favorite fantasy series. So, both of those things obviously had me hooked from the jump. So first impressions so far, again, I'm loving the setting, and also Medra as a protagonist, I'm really liking so far. Sometimes, you get a little bit frustrated with your protagonist or, sometimes you wouldn't exactly react to the way that they do, but so far I'm just really liking her personality and the way she's standing up for herself and defends herself in this crazy new world that she found herself in. And I'm really interested to see how the story develops.
So I will be so honest. I may have been under a literary rock because I had not heard of this book before at all until y'all brought it up, which is really not like me considering that there's a dragon on the cover.
Right.
Because if there is, usually it's on my radar somewhat, even if it's like, oh yeah, that's the book, that's the red book with the dragon on it. Even if that's the extent of my knowledge,
Yeah.
it's usually on my radar somehow. But that being said, I can't say that I gushed over the beginning of this book.
Okay.
Okay.
Honestly, it did take me a while to get into, and there could be a lot of different reasons for that. One, I'm reading the audiobook. So I don't have the physical copy of this one, which presents a little, and I'll talk about that later, it presents a little bit of a challenge because I think the narrators don't necessarily do a great job of differentiating the voices for different characters, and so it makes it a little difficult to stay in, who's talking now. Oh, I thought that was Medra. No, that's not Medra talking, that's someone else talking now. So it makes it a little confusing, but even with that, the story in the beginning, it took me a little while to still get into, like even plot wise. So that being said, The second half of the first part here is when I really started to enjoy it. And I was like,
Okay.
okay, I
Yeah.
can see where we're going now.
Yeah.
It's gaining some traction.
Yeah.
Okay,
Hmm.
and to your point, Steph, I can totally see why people call out Harry Potter here and
Yeah.
Fourth Wing. And I'm gonna throw with I texted Jen this earlier. I was like, I'm gonna throw in a third one into the mix here of the Wheel of Time because
Okay.
the traditionalism that is founded in Bloodwing Academy, they focus a lot on tradition and
Hmm.
the different factions and
Hmm.
and houses and stuff like that, which really reminds me of how the Aes Sedai operate in their own training and stuff like that, and
Okay.
the just the traditional and regalness of it all
Hmm.
kind of reminds me of that a little bit. But I'm I'm eager to continue reading.
Awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. I actually, this morning when I was thinking about this book, I thought even a little bit, it reminded me of Zodiac Academy a little bit and the way that they kind of treat each other. But
Yeah, true.
right? Okay. I was like,
Like how
Stephanie
brutal
might
they
know,
are.
but I know Ethan hasn't read
Yeah,
them yet.
I haven't read
Hmm.
it yet.
But I mean, it has like all the things that if you do like dark academia, like it has a lot of the same similarities. And so it's really, I
Yeah.
like it. Okay, so before we get into our three, two, one, I'm gonna do a quick little lore bite overview of what this world encompasses. So, On Wings of Blood takes place in a fantasy realm called Valmar, which is the capital city of Sangretha, shaped by ancient magic, rival kingdoms, and a long history of conflict between powerful factions made up of vampires. It's all laid out on three rocky islands. Society is built on lineage, military strength, and the control of magical bloodlines. In this world, survival often depends on strength, loyalty, and the ability to navigate dangerous political dynamics. The different noble houses that rule the kingdom are Drakharrow, Avari, Mortis, and Orphos, with Drakharrow being kind of like the lead in those four. And at the center of the story is actually Bloodwing Academy. This is an elite and notoriously, I can't speak today. I'm just going to say this is an elite and brutal training institution where the next generation of warriors, strategists, and leaders are forged. Bloodwing is not just a school, it's a proving ground. Students are trained in combat, strategy, and the mastery of their magical abilities while navigating intense rivalries and alliances. The different ranks at Bloodwing, which actually, oh wait, the different ranks at Bloodwing are the warriors, which are usually vampire nobility, healers, alchemists, apothecaries, strategists, and now dragon riders. So, after surviving their first year, students are sorted into four powerful houses that compete for dominance and prestige, and this happened to align to the four noble houses of the kingdom, which are House Drakharrow. I keep thinking of the British way that the girl says it. So,
Yeah, she calls it Drake.
Drakharrow. Okay.
She
Okay, so after surviving their first year, students are sorted into four powerful houses that compete for dominance and prestige, and these just happen to align with the four noble houses of the kingdom. House Drakharrow, where Blake will be fighting for house leader. House Avari, where Cage Tanaka is house leader right now. House Mortis, Catherine Mortis is the house leader for that house, and then House Orphos, which we have Lysander Orphos as house leader. The rivalry between these houses shapes much of academy life, pushing students to constantly prove themselves in order to survive and rise and influence. Okay, so that was the world we're jumping into. Those are the houses that kind of rule the kingdom right now. But we did read the first 15 chapters, so here's just a quick summary of where we are so far in the story. So we are following Medra Pendragon, a Fae princess from Camelot, who is suddenly ripped from her world and dropped into Sangretha, a brutal vampire-ruled society where power is everything and survival is not guaranteed. From the moment she arrives, she's an outsider. She doesn't fit into their hierarchy, and that immediately makes her both a target and something potentially valuable, since everyone now thinks that she's a dragon rider based on the color of her hair and the build of her body. And she happens to be the last dragon rider of that kingdom as well. So very quickly, she's taken under the control of Prince Blake Drakharrow, a powerful high blood vampire, and the relationship is tense from the start. There's a constant push and pull between them, control versus defiance, and things escalate even further when Medra is forced into an ancient blood bond that ties her to him in a way she never chose. So she suddenly finds herself as the second betrothed consort of Prince Blake Dracarys, with Regan being the first consort. From there, she's thrown into Bloodwing Academy, which is less of a school and more of a battlefield. It's where the most powerful individuals are trained. They're sorted into the four houses that we talked about. Bloodwing students are constantly pushed to prove their strength. And while Medra is just trying to survive in this environment, there's something bigger brewing. We start to see hints that she may be connected to an ancient dragon rider lineage, something that could completely shift the balance of power in this world. So at this point in the story, Medra is navigating a very dangerous academy bound to a powerful prince and slowly realizing that she might be a lot more important and a lot more dangerous than anyone expected. So let's get into our 3, 2, 1. Stephanie, 3 things that stuck out to you.
Okay, so my first thing is like, I think the most obvious thing from the jump. The way that this story started, like, leaves a lot under question, you know? So she, like, right from chapter 1. So, okay, so here. I've got a quote that I wrote in my notes. It says, Medra Autumntide 10 months earlier. The leaves were turning color when he found me. The last vestiges of summer were fleeing as my imprisonment began. I had died destroying a corrupt god in my own world. I had sacrificed to save the ones I loved. I had gone willingly to my end. I had gone with no regrets, and I had expected the end to stay the end. So, like, off the bat, you know, obviously something awful and tragic happened in her home world of Camelot, and somehow she found herself in a different world. So, like, are we between realms here? Like, already just like, what does that mean? How did that happen? And like, why did she end up in Sangratha? Because they immediately, you know, clock her hair and her build to mean that she is a dragon rider, but there are no dragons anymore. So like instantly, I honestly was hooked in the story. I was like, what is going on here? And like looking for answers to all of these questions. Ethan, what did you think of that?
Okay, so this ties in with my first point as well. The beginning of this book is very disorienting. It's incredibly disorienting. And I get that that's probably intentional, right? Medra is disoriented when she first comes to, and so we, the reader, need to feel that somewhat. But there comes a point where I, as the reader, need to feel grounded, at least somewhat, even if our main character is not grounded, because otherwise I can't really, like, fully engage in the book for me. And this is why it was really hard for me to get into it. Like, I can't, like, I have to at least be able to tell, you know, which direction is up.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, just because everything was so disorienting, the beginning of this book is just boom, 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 boom. And everyone accepts it for what it is. And I'm like, you're telling me, and how steeped this academy and this world is in tradition, that they're just willing to accept, like, she fell from the sky, blah, 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 you know, like, she's in this world now and we own her. I don't know. That's the beginning of this book was very hard for me to
But nobody saw her fall from the sky. Like, they
no.
found her already on the ground, so they don't really know where she came from. She's the only person that basically knows that she came from a different world.
True, but considering that she looks like no one they've ever encountered before.
True.
They don't put any stock into what she's saying.
Right.
And, I mean, if someone told us that, like, you're crazy. But, yeah, I don't know. It was... As far as fantasy goes, that was hard for me to like.
Okay, so
that's fair.
When I picked up this book, I had not read the prequel. So I picked up this book, I read that first chapter, and I was like, okay, I have to read the prequel now. So I stopped reading it,
I can see that.
and I went back and I read the 4-book prequel.
Before you even read
Before I even touched this one. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So does it give you a little more of what happened? Yes. Does it explain how she got there? No. So I was like, okay, a little disappointed in that too, because I was looking for answers as well as like how she got there. But Katie's, and I know what happened in this section, she explains to her kind of what happened, of like how she ended
least
up
her
there.
experience of it, but she also doesn't really understand it.
So yeah, it's crazy, right?
Ethan's like,
to me, that's
I'm not happy with that.
interesting. Because, okay, so That was my biggest thing too, was like, okay, how did she get there and like what happened there?
Yeah. So it's like, what happened to her? You know?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, obviously that first scene immediately has questions jumping out. And then my second thing is, how old is Medra? So this is another questionable thing that is like very unclear. From the beginning, it's in Medra's point of view, and she is referring to herself as a woman. So, okay, we can assume that she is like maybe like late teens, maybe early 20s. But then in chapter 10, there was a part where she thinks to herself, I was blessed or cursed, depending on how you look at it, with accelerated growth. By the time I was a few weeks old, I was walking. A few months later, and I was talking.
Yes.
So she also is much younger than she apparently appears to be. And like, what does that even mean? Obviously, right now we don't have the answer to that. Hopefully, we will later on in the story. I don't know if within this book, but like, and what are the implications of this weird ability of hers, or whatever you want to call this?
Yeah. What did you think, Ethan, before I throw my 2 cents in there?
As soon as I read that part, I immediately thought Renesmee.
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that too. I
Yeah.
thought that too. Yeah.
I was like, okay, I hope it's not, if they ever make the movie of this where we don't go into creepy CGI.
No, please don't do that.
Wasn't her accelerated growth due to the fact that she was half vampire? Right?
I don't remember what that was about.
Renesmee?
Right. And so that's what made me
is
think
that what
about
it
it, right?
was?
Like, it's
Okay.
because she's half fae, like that's what accelerated her growth.
But all the Fae in Camelot are not like that. She was the only
Yeah.
one that happened to.
Yeah, when she like discussed this or like thought about this, it was like implying that this was a unique thing about her. All right. And then my third point was Arcades. I think that's how you say her name. So she is actually Medra's mom, and she's the voice in Medra's head that she hears from the
So
beginning.
weird.
Yeah.
Which is strange. So she pops up from like chapter 1 as soon as she gets taken by Blake to the council or whatever. But anyway, in chapter 11 is when she finds out who this voice is. So Orcades tells Medra, apparently I was merely scattered when I died birthing you. Orcades continued, but my soul hadn't fully departed Arcanum. When you died, well, when you were meant to die, I found you. A part of my soul lodged in you to keep you safe, she clarified. I wasn't even doing it consciously. I was able to help you pass from one world to another with your own soul and body still intact. So that's her experience of like how Medra ended up in Sangratha, but obviously she's not even too clear on what exactly or how
Right.
exactly this happened
Yeah.
or why, but somehow like latching onto her helped her get to this other world alive and well instead of dying. So yeah, it's crazy. It doesn't really make any sense. And again, it just like brings up a lot of other questions on like, was there a reason? Why was she pulled to this world specifically, where apparently they have some sort of history with people of her background, at least like with her same hair and build. And so what does that mean? Again, it's just bringing up more questions for me. I'm like, what's going on here? You know?
Yeah.
Yes. I 100% agree with all the questions surrounding this because
Yeah.
it's just odd. It's just odd.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know how I feel about it, honestly, because when we in fantasy, when we hear, like, when we see someone that has a voice in their head, it's usually a dragon, you know, or someone. And so, I
Or like
don't
a
know.
mate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
sometimes
yeah.
it's a mate.
Or some kind of, you know, animal familiar, whatever. It's interesting that it was revealed to be her mother. And she was like, honestly, I'm surprised you haven't figured it out yet. I was like, bitch, I haven't figured it out yet. Like, what's happening here?
How's she supposed to
You
know?
said,
Yeah,
I'm your
exactly.
mother. And I was like, I certainly wasn't expecting that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to make of it, but it's interesting. It really is. And so I was like, I don't know if I can accept it at face value yet, or if there's something more to
Sure.
it here. So I'll definitely interested to read more about that. But I was like, this is so weird. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll keep reading. I'm intrigued.
Right.
Can you imagine having your mom know your every internal thought?
Worst freaking
No.
nightmare. Instant no.
Everything. I mean, this mom like
Yeah.
is experiencing all her internal struggles, her thoughts, and like, can you
Uh-huh.
imagine like her being there when you're trying to be intimate? Like, ew.
Ew.
She even says that too. She's like, I'll try to
She's
like
like, "I
leave you
promise
alone
I
or look the
won't."
other way. Yeah.
But like,
Like, but you don't want that. You don't
Yuck.
want your mother in your head. Like, what the hell? I know.
No.
I was very,
No.
very thrown off by this too.
It's like your mother. It's just the voice in your head is your mother? Okay, Norman Bates.
not even figuratively, but literally.
Yes.
Yeah. And this was another moment where it reminded me of Harry Potter because
Yeah.
the idea of a mother's love having power is
Right,
ingrained
yeah.
here too, because they even say that like explicitly in one
That's
line.
true,
Like
yeah.
a mother's power is the most powerful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the universe, she even says. So
Yeah.
Right. And it's
forgot
what
she did
helped
say
her
that.
or like saved her instead of dying.
Yeah.
That's why she ended up here.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
all right. Okay, so my first point already talked about is just the beginning of this book. I was just completely at a loss. I was disoriented and I didn't know what to make of things. And I was kind of shocked at just how, like I already mentioned, how well like everyone just accepted, and we the reader are expected to accept it. I felt like, which was weird for me. Like I was like, I'm still ready to question all of this, and you're already
Yeah.
moving on, and you're at point M when we're getting to point Z later on. But that being said, I don't know how I feel about Medra yet, really. And I think she's fun so far. I like her story. I think it's incredibly interesting. It really isn't something that I've read before. This is unique in the way it's being written here. And so I'm excited to get more of Medra's story and to try to get more information about her specifically, because right now she's operating in a place where she's learning everything else that's her surroundings, and we don't really get a lot of her introspection about where she came from.
Right.
So I'd be more interested in that as the book goes forward. How do you feel about Medra, Steph, so far?
So like personality wise, I like her because she's not cowering in this world that seems to be trying to control her. She's really holding her own and she's standing up for herself and like, not just letting them steamroll her, which is great.
Right.
And then like I'm also intrigued with like there seems to be unique things about her, not just unique about her in this world, but also unique for her home world that I'm like, okay, this is almost giving, possibly she's fulfilling some sort of prophecy here maybe or something like that. Cuz I mean, it hasn't been mentioned, but it doesn't seem like there's dragons in her home world. But for whatever reason, she looks just like what used to be called riders in this world. And so that almost implies like, are we going to see dragons here later on? And like, is she the impetus of dragons coming back to this world? So like it's kind of setting that up. And I'm, me and Ethan, we love dragons. So like,
Love
we're
it.
probably rooting
Love
for that
it.
to happen. So I'm really interested in this character. It seems, it's intriguing to me so far.
I like that she doesn't take any of the vampire elitist BS.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like
Yes.
she questions it, even to the point where she could potentially be killed for the way she's talking about them. She doesn't care.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so obviously she's where we're going to get a lot of like our social commentary from, like her character and why, and she questions everything. Like, why is it this way? Why are you
Yeah.
accepting it to be this way? Don't you
Right.
know what else you could have? Right. And so I love her for that. And it's interesting, we haven't mentioned this, I don't think yet, is that her home world is Camelot, right? So we have an
Right, yeah.
Arthurian legend
Yep.
tie-in here.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's Camelot world, and part of the commentary that really stuck out to me, because I'm engaged to Nicholas, is the different characters here and their affinities, for trysts that they have and relationships that they build. And when you think of a Camelot story, you think of it almost like a mirror to our world, where there's that prejudice against
Yeah.
people of the same sex being in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem like she shares that prejudice.
Yeah.
And she questions the fact why they might have some kind of feelings about two women being together or two men being together.
Mm-hmm.
And we get that with one of my favorite characters so far, is Theo, who's
Yeah.
revealed to entertain both the men and the ladies.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought that was interesting. And I
Yeah.
like Medra's character because of that as well. And then my third point here is just the Academy itself. This is always interesting for me. For so long, I used to think, oh, it's another
Mm-hmm.
vampire novel, or oh, it's another school we get. But what I've learned is that these are just common tropes in fantasy or speculative fiction, right?
Yeah.
And the fun comes in to read an author's take on it and their own spin. And so, like I said earlier, this is a truly unique spin that I haven't read before, with all these different tropes tying in together. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of Bloodwing Academy and how it operates.
I'm when I read this, like my thing was I had a thought and I said, is this too much of a stretch to go from King Arthur and, like that whole legendary story in Camelot to a Academy of Vampires? Like, how do you as an author tie that together? So when I was
Right.
reading this book, that was my thought. I was like, is this too much of a stretch to go from that realm to this realm?
That's a great
I think you have-
question.
yeah.
It'd be cool to see someone do it well. So right now I'm in.
Right. And I think Briar Boelyn is of the mind of go big or go home, because not only are we getting Arthurian Camelot to a vampire world, but then we're also getting in the same world that vampires and dragons exist and dwarves, and so there's a lot happening
There's
here.
a lot of fantasy thrown in.
Yeah.
A lot of common fantasy tropes, like I was saying
Yeah,
earlier,
yeah.
thrown into the mix here. And we're seeing what sticks on the wall, and going from there, I guess. I'm buying in so far. But yeah, I think you
Yeah.
do run the risk of it being too much for a reader.
Right. So like plot wise, I liked it. I liked the characters. I really liked Bedra. But that was my initial thought when I read On Wings of Blood. I was like, is that too much of a stretch? We'll find out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So 2 character beats. What was one of yours, Steph?
Okay, so my first one came in chapter 7 during her fight with Visha. Now, again, I love an academy setting. I love a good, rival or, enemy. And so, but at one point, Medra did something that made her senses kind of like sharpen all of a sudden. Like at first, it seemed like she was just kind of like on the defense and just like kind of holding her own, but not really getting any hits in against Visha. But like she did something, and the quote is here, but standing there on the matted earth with sunlight streaming down on us, I felt a very fiery warmth spread through my veins. I took a deep breath and my heartbeat steadied, my senses sharpened. Every detail suddenly seemed to stand out vividly in a way it hadn't just a few moments before. So like somehow, I don't know if she harnessed her senses or some sort of power, and all of a sudden she was actually able to turn this fight around and actually won against Visha. But then like Visha wasn't playing nice, and after she won, she attacked her from behind, and that's why she beat her up in the end. But
Cheater.
again, this is another unique ability it seems that she has, and like everybody was surprised by her being able to win against Visha. Like, this is a second year class that she was in, and she literally just started today and was able to beat this girl. And we do know that she apparently was training back in her home world, and so she's got some, combat training under her belt, but she seems to have some like another extra special ability here. So that I think was pretty cool. And again, another thing that I'm gonna be interested in seeing how it develops and how it like helps her in this world.
Yeah, I loved that moment, that fight. And I was like, oh, yes. Because everything's been happening to Medra at this point, rather
Yeah.
than her being able to have some kind of agency.
True.
And so when we get to this point, I'm like, yes, this is the moment we need it. Like, show us, Medra, show us what you're working with here. And she goes for it. And she's able to hold her own. And you can tell that vampires are begrudgingly impressed.
Right.
And so that was fun to see. I read that moment where she started to gain some strength, with the sunlight streaming down. And it made me think, if we are maybe going to see dragons in the future, which I hope so, because that's my fave. Are we going to see, are the 4 dragons that are in the courtyard, are those like maybe the only 4 types of dragons that there were? And does one of them have an affinity for sunlight, and maybe that's where her powers are grounded. That's what it made me think of. So I thought that moment was really cool. Plus she just got to beat her ass.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I do like, though, that she took a moment and was like, okay, and maybe I was a little too cocky in thinking I could take her before she finally, like, got her, senses together and was able to actually push back. Because in the beginning, she was more on the defense,
Yeah.
Right.
So I do like that she admitted that to herself. Because I'm like, gotta stay humble too, right?
Yeah, she's not Delulu.
Did this not remind you of the fight between Violet and Imogen?
Yeah, honestly.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, that one, and also the one that she had with that girl that was challenging Dane, that made me think of more of that.
Yeah.
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 But I was thinking more of like the cheating thing from Visha. Because Imogen kind of cheated using her powers too, didn't she?
Yeah, that's true. Well,
Right?
I feel like, no.
Or is that Cat?
She-
That's Cat.
Yeah, that was Kat.
Oh, okay.
Imogen actually beat her ass and broke her arm.
Oh, that's right.
Like, she
I can't
did her
remember.
best, but she did not win.
I do remember somebody cheating on her, but it was Cat. Cat
Yeah, that was
cheating
Kat.
using her powers against
Yes.
Violet.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a theory after like reading book 3 that Imogen might have used her powers like on Violet earlier than we might think.
This is a huge
But-
theory, by the way.
But I don't think that's
Yeah.
canon. Yeah.
I don't know.
We need to rediscover our theories for Fourth Wing.
I know,
Yes,
right?
we sure do.
But
sorry.
yeah, I do appreciate that at first she was like, well, I'm going to show them because I've actually been training for a while.
Yeah.
And then she had a little bit of a humbling moment. She was like, okay, actually, I'm not going to like completely wipe the floor with her
On second thought.
right away. I can barely stay up. But then she like got it together and like pulled it through.
I loved it. Yeah, I love that.
Because sometimes you read stuff like this and like they're immediately like some kind of prodigy and they're just like wiping the floor with everybody.
Right.
And as much as I enjoy that, it's just not relatable,
Right.
You can't
This
be
one's
perfect right
definitely
from the
more-
jump.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then my second character moment was more just like a thought about Rodriguez. Like, I just don't know what to think of him. Because at first in chapter
Me
6,
either.
yeah, in chapter 6, I was not liking him at all. He lashed out at her and made her miss her lunch period because of the questions that she was obviously put up to ask by Reagan. And he like punished her for asking about like the history between dragons and healers, which is a sore subject for him and his family specifically. But then later on in chapter 11, he showed up to her meeting with Headmaster Kim and actually offered to train her in what's called Thrall Guard. So like one scene was that Reagan like used her thrall abilities or whatever you call it to force Medra to climb up one of those dragon statues and like roar like a dragon during the headmaster's commencement speech, which
I
is
was laughing at Medra.
crazy. Yeah. That, I mean, she looked like an idiot, obviously, doing that, but it was under a spell cast by Reagan. And then the headmaster took over Reagan's power over her and made her jump off of it, which I was just like, why did you make her jump?
I know.
Like, you're the headmaster.
I know,
Tell her
he's
to
stupid.
climb down.
Right.
Anyway, so then Rodriguez comes in and like offers to teach her how to protect herself from this. And so I'm just like, okay, at first he's kind of a little bit of a hard ass and don't really like him, but now he's offering to help her. So I'm like, what's going on with Rodriguez? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I was wondering if he was such a hard ass at first because he was in front of a class and he had to put on appearances.
Well, that's a good point. Okay.
Yeah, and then now that, but that being said, he didn't have to continue acting that way when it was just one-on-one with
Right.
her
Yeah.
and when he was explaining the details of her punishment or whatever.
Right.
So that may be a hole in that theory. No, I don't know what to make of him either.
Yeah.
He's just such a question mark. His character reminds me of Red Queen.
Oh, Julian?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he was back and forth a lot. Like, I was like, is he
Yeah.
friend or foe? Like, the entire time we were
Yeah,
in the
you
first
just
book, I was
don't
like, is he friend or foe? Yeah. He reminds
yeah.
me of Orion from Zodiac.
Oh, I can see that.
Right?
Yes.
Like, he's a grumpy old professor. You don't know where his allegiance lies.
Right, yeah. Like he might just like be putting up a front, like you mentioned, Ethan, but he might like behind the scenes.
Because
Be
he's
something
mortal.
else.
So he's a Blightborn. And he seems to not be like enamored with the vampires like everybody else is. So like there's that. But then he
Except for that
treats...
one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
But then he
the
He's got a
combat
grudge.
professor.
Yeah. But then he treats Medra like crap. So I was
Yeah.
really confused too. I was like, okay, again,
Yeah.
friend or foe.
Yeah.
We don't know. We'll see.
Keep reading. So Ethan.
All right. Yes, my first two, the Medra, I'm going to start with. I did not really like her character in the beginning at first. But now I kind of love her because she is so feisty and she stumbles so often here at the beginning that it's a really clever way on giving us exposition. Is we can tell that she's a strong character and yet she's just stepping on landmines left and right.
Yeah.
And she's going to hard knock school for sure. And she's learning the hard way on certain things. So I think that's fun at her expense. You know,
Yeah.
I was laughing at her when she had climbed the dragon and she roared like a lion.
Oh my god.
I was like, oh my god, I would be so embarrassed, and I'm like kind of embarrassed
embarrassing.
for you, but also like,
This is
That's
funny.
hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
so yeah, Medra, I like her, and I think it's cleverly written to give us some good exposition because there's a lot to learn in this world, and it's fairly dense as far as all other customs.
Yeah.
Go.
So when I first read, like, part of me loved Medra for the way she stood up for everything, right? Like, she wasn't taking anybody's crap. She wasn't taking anybody's BS. She was questioning everything. But at the same time, I'm like, girl, just listen. Like, shh.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
like, I love
Like-
it. Yeah.
Be quiet and learn.
Yeah. Like, I love it. But at the same time, do you want to die?
Right.
Do you want your friends to die?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's how I felt about her. I was like, I love her. She's a great FMC. She didn't annoy me right away like some others do. I love her character, but at the same time, like, take a step back and, like, look where you're at.
Yeah.
Look how your first day went, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes she reminds me of Katniss a little bit. We're a really strong character, but also sometimes I'm like, God, stop.
Just
Like, stop
reel
being
it in.
stupid.
Yeah.
And then the second moment I had was Orcades
Uh-huh.
And we've already talked about her, but like the mother voice in Medra's head, really, like it's her mother. I don't know. I still don't know what to think here. I will be
Yeah.
honest and say that when I saw that she had someone else in her head, like I was saying earlier, I thought it was a dragon. I was like, "Ooh, yay! This is like we're
Okay.
getting dragons."
I see. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I won't lie, I
Disappointed.
was kind of
I was like
disappointed.
disappointed.
I was like,
Yeah.
"It's her mother?
Yeah.
Oh, is her mother a dragon?"
Well, I don't know.
Does that give her her ability to grow quicker? I don't know. But yeah, I thought it was a dragon.
Yeah.
I had no idea who she was, and when she in the very beginning when she was in the court presented in front of the council, and she was
Yeah.
hearing these voices, I was like, is there like some kind of like vampire who's talking to her?
That was my first thought too.
Right?
I was thinking that one of the vampires on the council
Yeah.
was like projecting their consciousness into her or something
That's
like
what I
that,
thought.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that at first too for that chapter, and then I was like, well,
But it followed her.
what? I
so-
mean,
It continued to
she's a
follow
dragon
her.
rider.
Yeah.
I was like, so what if this is a dragon inside of an egg or something, or what if one of the stone dragons that we read about is actually a dragon and they just need to
Yeah.
awaken. I don't know, but I was like, oh, it's her mother. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Like now what? And she's also trying to do some research to see if she can get her out of her head. So I wonder if like later on maybe this is how dragons come about, you know? Like maybe.
I want dragons.
Like if she successfully like takes her out of her head, like happens to her mother and her, because it seems like it's her soul that's
Right.
like connected to her now. So can she like transfer that to something else and create a dragon or something? I don't know.
That would be really cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So those are my two.
All right.
Cool.
So we have made it to our favorite part, which is our one theory and or prediction. But I think with like the first few chapters, we never really come up with some of the better predictions.
I
It's always
know.
like later on
Yeah.
in like parts 2 and 3.
Yeah, we need a
So-
little more usually.
Yeah. So Steph, what was your theory?
Yeah. So again, you already mentioned like it's early on, so my theory brain isn't really firing right now. But like I guess the one obvious one I'm going to bring up that we've already talked about a couple of times throughout here is like hopefully Medra somehow being the impetus for dragons returning to this world. I think that'll be cool to see, and I hope that that happens. I just don't know how right now. We don't have a lot of information.
Well, now that we've been talking a little bit, I'm going to make it a theory and or a prediction.
Yay.
Okay.
So my prediction is I think we're leading up to a faction war here. It's
Yeah.
hinting they've said we've had quote unquote peace for the last 5 years, and even within that time have things truly been peaceful? No. So we learned that back in the last civil war it was between the Dracaros and Avira.
Avari.
Avari.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. It was between Dracaro and Avari, and the other two houses fell in on either side. We don't know for sure just yet, but I think that's probably what's going to happen again. It feels, again, this is a moment where it feels a little Red Queenish, where I could see a huge thing similar to that happening, like maybe to Victor Dracaro, which is Blake's uncle, who's kind of the leader in charge right now. So I could see something happening there. I don't know. But
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say that we're going to get some kind of war between factions at some point. And then as we've been talking, my theory that I'm kind of developing is that the Fae from Camelot were the original dragon riders in this world, and that at some point there was just a switch. And that's maybe why we don't have dragons anymore in this world.
Yeah. Yeah, because it kind of came up a little bit in their history class, what happened with the dragons. And then it was just kind of a side comment, like, and then the dragon riders went extinct. But we don't really know how or why. Like, how does that happen? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, for some reason, the dragons were getting sick and they were trying to get healers to help them out, and that didn't work out. And then dragon riders went extinct. What?
Yeah.
Like, a whole population of humans, or, you know, like, I guess Fae just went extinct. That's weird.
I
So,
love.
I think there's more there, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that Medra was questioning the history of the vampires whenever she was in that class. And she was like,
Yes.
this is all bullshit.
This
Yeah.
is propaganda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like,
Immediately
go,
she
girl.
clocked it. She was
Yeah.
like, wait, the victors are always the ones that write the history, you know? And like,
Exactly.
for someone young, that's like a really wise
shrewd.
thing to like
Yes.
call out. And it's really like smart of her to question it immediately instead of like everybody else just like, oh yes, you know, the purebloods, and like the way that they look up to them. It's like, I mean, just based on the way that they treat what they call the Blightborn, obviously the way that they're teaching their history should be questioned. Like, I was obviously
know.
questioning it, and I'm glad that she is too.
I love that she was just like, of course the vampires are going to make themselves look like the heroes here.
Right, yeah.
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 I love that. See,
So-
that's one thing I love about her. But at the same time, I'm like, if you say that out loud, or if you keep saying that out loud, like somebody's going to kill you.
Yeah,
Or
like
you
watch out
get
with that.
too many questions.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Like, that's smart. Just don't say it too loud. Okay, book friends, that was the end of our first deep dive on Wings of Blood by Briar Boelyn. Let's keep the discussion going. We are Books Between Friends pod on all platforms. Thank you for interacting with us on our socials. We look forward to chatting with you about this book.
And just when you think you've got a handle on the world of On Wings of Blood, everything starts to crack. In our next episode, we're diving into chapters 16 through 30, where alliances get messy, trust starts to feel like a risk, and the tension, it's officially building. We'll be talking shifting power dynamics, moments that had a side-eyeing everyone, and a few scenes that definitely raised some questions. If you thought the first section was intense, just wait, because this is where things start to turn.
That's a wrap for Books Between Friends today. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next chapter.